humbucker is probably more versatile to cover any type of music.
Yeah, and my point is a single coil is more versatile to cover different types of music.
So anyways, let us know what you guys think. Obviously, we can't agree, so let us know.
Tell him he's wrong.
No.
Hey guys, welcome to ToneBros. My name's Casey.
I'm Colin. We're going to get started here with our current topic of the day.
Yeah.
Casey, we are going to be talking about the newly revised.
New, old,
whatever it is.
Old new.
Sounds great. We're going to talk about the Gibson Falcon Amps.
Oh, cool.
All right, so you've probably seen these. They are essentially recreating those Gibson Falcon Amps of olden times, and they have a 112 and then a 112 amp combo, and then they have a 210 combo. They're both around 12, 15 watts, around $1,800 to $2,200.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, and of course they're made by Mesa because it's Gibson. So, what are your thoughts? Are you interested? Anything else?
So, my thoughts is I love Gibson coming back with amps again. I like the idea of them reissuing because I'm an old school dude that loves older stuff and vintage style things. I love that Mesa is helping them build it. I know there's been some people talk about like the build quality maybe not being great. They're like, oh, it gets too hot and blah, blah, blah. And I think the new bigger one has a fan in the back and stuff to cool it down. Let me tell you something. I know Mesa has been out there for years and years, and their stuff is really reliable. Yes, of course, everybody's had their issues with certain models. Who in the world hasn't? But you go pick one of these up from the 50s, like the original ones, you want to talk about something that's got some issues, those are going to have some issues, right? So I'm not concerned about it with any of that type of stuff. They're definitely testing the quality of this stuff. Yeah, they get hot. Guess what? Every tube amp gets really hot. And yeah, the tube sockets are mounted to the circuit board supposedly, but guess what? Almost all the amps' tube sockets these days are mounted to circuit boards. If Dave Friedman does it with his amps, I'm not concerned with it with my amps, because Dave Friedman, you know, he's kind of the go-to guy for that type of stuff. He's not going to skimp on quality with things like that.
Right.
So, short of going into some hand-wired stuff, I think it's probably the same type of build quality as a lot of the things out there. And I think for the price point, I think it's really good. If you start looking around, like a deluxe reverb reissue now, it's like $1,500-$1,600 for a new one. So I think for a hand-built amp in America, hand-built, you know, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
Somewhat hand-wired and some, you know, PCB dipped also. It is what it is. But made in the United States versus a lot of the stuff that's made in China for about the same price or made in different countries, I think it's a pretty good price. I'm not interested in the 210 as much. Maybe I would be if I played it. But that 12-watt amp, which it's power selectable, right? So it's 12,
right? You
and
can
it's
do
like
half.
7 watts or something, and then like 1 watt or whatever. Which I kind of hate that personally. I like.
It gives the bedroom player a lot of options.
I guess.
Or the at-home player.
I just rather play it clean, quietly, and use a pedal if that's a snare.
That's you, not everybody.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it, but because I'd have to show you that you're wrong.
He's against master volumes for everyone.
Not completely against it, but if I got a master volume, I'm probably turning it almost all the way up. So for me, I think the 12-watt one is really interesting because it's kind of like Princeton-esque type of, you know, volume and stuff. I think it could probably pair with some stuff really cool. I definitely want to go play one. It's got the right number of knobs. You know, there's hardly no knobs on it.
It's pretty limited.
So I love that. I like that it's, you know, pretty simple. So yeah, I like the idea of it. I love that Gibson's coming back with amps. It's way better than those like gold tone amps they had, you know, back in the day. They had them. They were like black Tolex, maybe brown sometimes, and they had like the gold like grill over the speakers. I don't know if you remember those. Joe Perry played one in like the early 2000s and stuff. A long time ago when I went to the Gibson factory in Memphis, they had some of those. That's when Epiphone was also making amps. Remember they had that little Epiphone, small little Valve Junior. Yeah, Valve Junior is what it was.
Those are cool.
And then
one knob.
Yeah, just one knob. Speaking of right number of knobs.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool because, I mean, this is, even back in the day, this was Gibson's take on essentially a tweed circuit, right?
Yeah,
that's
I think so.
Pretty much what it is.
It certainly looks that way.
Yeah, it's 6V6s. It's around 12 watts. I mean, sounds a lot like a deluxe.
Seems like it.
It gets a little fuzzy when you turn it up a little bit. You know, I don't know if it's going to be like something that's going to totally change my perspective on if I want one, Will I buy one? Probably not. I've already got a 5E3 Tweed. I'm good.
If you're looking for a in the living room amp, though, there's very few amps
I was
that
about to
the
say-
wife would be happy with, or girlfriend, or whatever, would be happy with setting in your living room. And I think they are beautiful looking amps.
I think it's between that. If you get like a Princeton,
yeah.
you get. I think Supros are really cool. That would be a cool bedroom.
Supros are cool. Magnetones are cool looking.
Magnetones are cool. So I think it's an awesome idea. Am I going to go out there and race to buy one? Probably not.
So do you think they're going to come out with more? Like maybe not reissues, obviously. They're probably, because I don't know how many Gibson reissues they've got out there. I mean, they do have other amps out there, but do you think they're going to make more amps under the Gibson name?
I think so. I think this is probably their test run, honestly.
Do you think they're going to go into like newer tube stuff and kind of change things up, or do you think they're going to head the other way and kind of move into, you know, like...
I still think they're going to do reissues because they still have what the GA or whatever, and all that still to,
series and stuff.
they have all that to revive again because they're a lot of like Nashville musicians that will still use those amps.
Yeah, you see them in a lot of studios just sitting around.
I really think this is probably their toe in the water to see how well this does, and then they can keep making more.
Well, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's trying to go check one out. I want to go check one out.
I would like to play one just to A-B it with my Tweed.
I think it would be really cool to set side by side and have playing with my Deluxe. I think they would probably complement each other pretty well.
Probably.
But I need to go play one. I really want to go play one and check it out. And then also you get in that whole thing of like, well, maybe you need to check out a different speaker in it. You know, that's the whole thing
that's
of like
every
Princeton
amp.
and
That's
stuff.
every amp.
But I'm really interested. I think it's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to be cool.
Yep. All right. So we are going to be moving in to the main topic, and I've got the first one here. So, Casey, everyone is always clamoring about what is the difference between single coils and humbuckers. But I want to ask you, which one rules them all? If you had to choose one, and to explain to like people who maybe don't really understand the difference between single coils and humbuckers and why you might use one over the other.
Well, if you're playing a Tele, you would play single coils. And if you're playing a Les Paul, you'd play humbuckers.
Yeah, I know that. But go into more detail, would you?
So for me, when you would pick them. So classically, you know, the single coil has been known to be a lot of times like kind of a country thing, right? So it was very initially kind of built around country music, I think. I think the humbucker
Leo
stuff...
Fender might disagree with that. Buddy Holly might disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's different stuff out there. People play different things. But I think generally today when people look at those guitars, that's kind of what they point to a lot of times.
Country, blues.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, roots music.
Yeah.
To be fair, because that's kind of how it all started.
When you think of Nile Rodgers playing all that funk stuff, can you imagine him playing anything other than a Strat?
No.
There's nothing else.
Continuum, John Mayer.
Yeah. Right?
I mean...
Case in point.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the stuff you think of whenever you go into there. And when you think of humbuckers, I think there's, you know, a couple different camps. But I think most people look into rock and roll stuff. They think of Slash, and they think of Jimmy Page and Les Pauls. And they think of, like, Angus with his SGs and Tony Iommi doing that stuff. And then there's...
Zakk Wylde.
Right.
You know, you got the heavier side, too.
Yeah, and those are active. So that's a whole nother thing, right? And then on the other end of it, you look at like 335s and the jazzers and stuff that were playing the humbuckers.
They also play tellies too.
Oh yeah, there's different stuff, and you know, Charlie Christian pickups and all that different things. But for me, I think there's no one pickup to rule them all for me, for sure. It's kind of like Pokemon. I got to collect them all. Like, I want a little bit of them all. And then you've got the P90 side of things, right? So we haven't even talked about
that's a single
P90s,
coil.
which is a single coil thing. And then you got, you know, all the different guys that played that stuff. I think it's really...
If you have to choose one, I'm forcing you.
Oh, no.
You have to make one decision. You could play one for the rest of your life.
Rest of my life.
A single coil or a humbucker. Which are you choosing?
Oh, my gosh.
A double stacked single coil does not count.
Okay. I'm going to... this is like sacrilegious for me, but I'm going to pick single coil.
Why are you going with single coil?
So for me, especially if I can get a P90 in there. So I just think that, versatility-wise, they might be a little more versatile than the humbucker generally speaking. It's really hard to speak in those terms. So whenever I pick up my telly and I'm playing and I want to countrify it out and play a bunch of country licks, it can get, quacky with them all. If I want to play a Strat and do Stevie or John Mayer or whatever, some funk stuff, that's always there. If I want to play like Keith Richards style rock and roll, classic rock stuff, if you want to do, Blackberry Smoke with P90s, if you want to do, there's a ton of options. And I think that you can always add compression. You can always add level and gain into anything, and it will compress and squish and get tighter. But you can't go the other way with it. It's kind of like how I feel about setting up gain for amps and for pedals, is I would rather be on the low end of things and like slowly boost into it to get more compression. Because if you start with a humbucker, you've got a baseline of compression and level that you can't back out of. You can't get it more open. You can't get it more twangy.
I tell you what. See this knob?
Yeah.
It's called treble.
Yep.
You can turn that up.
You can. It's not the same though.
See presence? You can turn that up.
Yeah, and I do. I like a really bright sound though.
Have you heard Joe Bonamassa chicken pick on a Les Paul?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like single coils.
You know what though? I don't sound like Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah.
I can't do that, man.
Right.
I've tried and tried, and my Les Paul is very bright. It's very bright, it's very punchy, and it's really telly-esque. Mm-hmm. But there is just something completely different. I feel like if I'm stuck in a room...
So, to help you... Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
It's okay.
It's just what I do.
It's hard, man.
So, if you're John 5,
yeah,
you can make a telly work, although he uses humbuckers.
Yeah.
All right, you can play your communication breakdown. You can kind of get all that done with the telly and single coils. I'm going to say you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because you can be playing a 335, and guess what? You can play anything on a 335.
Yeah, you can play
any style of music you want.
Yeah.
You might not want to play Slipknot on a 335. I get that.
Yeah.
But the feedback might kill you. But as far as, if you want to play any type of genre, I think a 335 or something with humbuckers
really
is the way to go.
Oh, man. Well, let me hear your argument with that then, because I disagree.
Because, I have a Gibson SG. All right, it has all the mids that you would need.
Yeah.
It cuts through the mix. I can turn that tone up and on my amp, and guess what? It gets pretty bright.
Yeah.
Or
I'm not just looking for bright.
I know. Guess what? They make EQ pedals, Casey,
yeah,
where you can totally change your sound.
Yep.
And you can get that brightness.
You're right.
Now, are you going to be able to chicken pick? Probably not completely. But guess what? Those humbuckers will apply to any style of music. You can't get a single coil to sound thick if you really want it to. Not truly. If you have,
they got things called EQ pedals.
Yeah, and you can put a big muff on it and stuff like that. I get that. But I truly think that you can EQ a humbucker.
Put a big muff on it? That's what she said.
Okay, stop. Anyways, I really think that you are better suited for maybe a humbucker style of sound. If you want to rule them all and have only one pickup, I think that's it.
Yeah, I would go the other way with it. I would be single coil every time. And if I stack enough gain on there, I don't know, what are you missing in a single coil that you can't get?
All right, let me tell you, when you stack all that gain, tell me how the hum works out for you.
Well, yeah, but the hum doesn't work well. But then I just roll my volume down or kick the pedal off.
Just roll your volume down. Just get a noise gate on there. It'll all sound the same.
Not a noise gate. I don't mind hum. I don't mind hum most of the time.
Well, I guess you've never had it in a situation where it's been a problem.
Yeah, I haven't. Not where it's a big enough problem that's an issue.
Okay, that's why you get a humbucker.
Yeah.
That's
just
the
trying
whole
to
reason.
buck that hum.
That's right. That's it. And it'll solve all your problems.
Yeah, well...
It turns all your bad feelings into good.
What's crazy is if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, without question, I'm a humbucker dude. I'm never going to play a single coil all the time. Mm-hmm. But now I feel completely different. I've got my Duesenberg, which has that P90 in the neck, and my Telly. Those two guitars I play a lot now, like a lot. Mm-hmm. And I never would have thought that would have been the case. But it's about finding the right system for you. And yeah, I don't feel the same way as I used to. It's crazy.
That is, you've totally done a 180.
Yes.
Like for the people out there that have no idea your background.
Yep.
Like where you started and where you ended up is different. Well, same for me.
Yeah.
You started with 80s metal, hair metal.
Yeah.
And mine was like metal,
heavy rock,
like Pantera, or Megadeth, and yeah, we changed a lot. So I think, to me, going back to the point, humbucker is probably more versatile to cover any type of music.
Yeah, and my point is a single coil is more versatile to cover different types of music.
So anyways, let us know what you guys think. Obviously, we can't agree, so
Tell him
know.
he's wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
All right, so I want to bring up, we're going to move into gas or pass.
Okay.
So let's see if we can get along on this one.
Okay.
All right, so gas or pass for me is, it's not one specific piece, but it's a style. So I want to talk about gas or pass vintage all mahogany acoustics. So Martin made some. Martin's got like the 17 series. Some of those are like pre-war 17s, right? So they're all mahogany body, sides, tops, backs, necks, rosewood fingerboards. And then Gibson's got like the LG single O. Right. So the LG2 is super popular because Nathaniel Radcliffe plays those, and he's got a signature model and stuff.
Stapleton's played some.
Stapleton's played them. But if you go back, not the LG1. So the difference is LG2 is the first LG that has X bracing. Okay. LG1 has ladder bracing, which is not as stable and I guess kind of like stops the top from ringing quite as much. The LG0 or LGO, I don't know which one technically it is, is all mahogany version of the LG1. So it's got ladder bracing and it's all mahogany rather than having a spruce top. Mm-hmm. But if you look into the vintage market, these are not super sought after guitars. So their value is not quite as high as some of them. So you can get into like a vintage LGO, LG0, for like $1,500 or less right now. And that's for like a 40s or 50s. And then the Martin 17 series, you can get a pre-war Martin, like a 17, they made the triple O's, they made the double aughts, they made all that. And they're like less than $4,000 for like a 35 or 37. Like those are the golden era of guitars, as in acoustics anyway.
For Martin.
Like there's nothing, pre-war D28 is going for $75,000 or $100,000 sometimes.
Cheap.
It's super cheap.
It's very cheap.
But, these are made in the same factory.
Let me live in a cardboard box.
Yeah, just live in a box for a week. But, it's the same mahogany they would have been using in those guitars. A D28's rosewood, but you know what I'm saying. A D18 is mahogany.
I know what you're trying to say. It's from like the same era when they were making the same guitars.
Made with the same quality. They were just the student models.
I think that's interesting. Regardless,
Name a guitar you could find for $1,500 like the LGO, brand new. There's not a lot of them out there that I'd be super interested in the same way I'd be interested in that.
So, that my current situation with acoustics, I really don't have a need for anything in that kind of ballpark.
Right.
I've got kind of my small acoustic, I've got a mid-size, I've got a bigger dreadnought style. I'm pretty much covered. I still don't have like my dream acoustic yet.
Right.
And that's kind of all I need. So as far as these things, for me personally, I'm not personally interested in going out and buying one myself. Now, if I had extra cash and if it was a really cool piece and I thought that the tone actually kind of justified the price, I would say let's go for it. Like the LG 0 or O or whatever it is, I'm interested in it, but I don't think I've ever played one. So I have no idea, like, as far as the tonal palette of what that acoustic can do, I have no idea what that would sound like. Yeah. So I am totally dark to the game. I have no idea what's at stake. You know what I mean? So I think it's really cool that you can get a vintage piece like that, but if I'm going to buy it, I want to play it. Like, I'm not just going to put up on a wall and say that's good.
Right, yeah. It needs to be something you play. And I think the cool thing about some of those is, you don't want to modify a bunch of these guitars a whole bunch. But a lot of them have been, like, tinkered with and messed with already. There's a lot of LGs out there, LG1s and LGOs, that have, like, under saddle pickups already in them. And that thing for, like, a small-bodied acoustic singer-songwriter thing,
great.
It would be amazing, and it's got so much vibe, and it's so cool. And you're talking, like I said, I've seen them out there for like $1,000 for like a 1950s, and really reasonable. Yeah, a lot of them have cleats in them because there's been cracks and there's been bridge repairs and pulls. But whenever you're getting into that era guitar, even the really nice ones a lot of times have those same things.
Right.
As long as it's done quality.
I guess when it comes down to, is it, am I going to pass on it or is it a gas for me? I couldn't order it online. I would have to play it in person.
Yeah.
So, is it a gas? Potentially, if it is the perfect guitar in the perfect situation and it just so happens to walk in the shop when I do.
Yeah.
But am I going to go out there and actually
Look
go out
for
and, yeah, I'm not going to order it.
Yeah.
Definitely not with something old like that too, where you have no idea what it's truly like until you see it in person.
Yeah. So you're walking the line right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against getting one, but I'm not going to go out there and buy it.
That's kind of where I'm at too. I'm not exactly full on gassing for it, but I'm definitely pretty interested in them.
Yeah.
So.
All right, I will go towards my gas or pass, and this is one that I've really looked at. Okay, so I'm going to lead into this gas or pass with the movie It Might Get Loud.
Yep.
Jimmy Page, Jack White.
I've heard of these guys.
The Edge.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 amazing guitar players, and it's a great show. If you haven't watched the movie It Might Get Loud, you should check it out. Super inspirational for guitar players. But that is the show in the movie that really made me interested in Silverstone amps.
Oh, okay.
Silverstone amps, they have a special sound. Jack White used them for a long time.
Yep.
I think now actually he's technically playing Fenders and Silvertones. But I've always kind of wanted a Silverstone amp, but I've never played it in person.
Yeah.
So I have no idea besides the sounds I hear on records and through YouTubes, and we know how demos are.
Demos suck.
So, now that we've kind of addressed that, would you ever want a Silverstone amp? Because you can find them just a head, around the $600 mark. You can find a head and a cab somewhere around $1,400.
Yeah, so are you only interested in the Silverstone Twins? Because that's the one that Jack played with the head and the combos and stuff.
Yeah, what is it, the Silverstone? I think it's 1964 or something like that. Yeah, that's the one I would look at, the 60 water.
Okay, so there's one, it's a model 1482, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
That is a single 12 combo. And it's actually, I think it's technically like a harmonica amp or something. It's got a mic input and a harmonica implant.
Yep.
It's got a harmonica
It's got an implant in there.
Man, best looking Silverstone I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think it's got a tremolo circuit built in it. So it's got a speed and intensity knob. There's only 4 knobs. And I heard Blue Saraceno play one. Once again, we're talking about demos, so take it with a grain of salt. We don't have to say it again, do we?
No, we've already said it enough.
So, Blue Saraceno played one in a demo, and he was demoing that Tweak Fuzz pedal that Seymour Duncan put out in the early 2000s. It had a switchable thing for different transistors and change the fuzz in it. Anyway, he sets down with this little Silverstone amp, 112, crappy. It looks like it's about to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And Blue Saraceno can play anything anyway.
Right.
But he sets down, and it is the most amazing sound. And he's talking about, he's like, yeah, I just take this around to all my sessions and stuff. Because no one thinks anything about this little Silverstone amp. He just carries it around, sets it down, and it's small.
Looks like a lunchbox.
They're this thin.
Right.
Super thin, and they're small. They're smaller than a Princeton, probably. And I think you can find them for less than $600 or $700 right now. I'm very interested in that. I don't want a Twin 12. The one that you're talking about,
I think it would be really cool.
I think it'd be really cool, but I'm probably not going to gig this amp. And it probably stinks.
Just because it's old.
Yeah, just because it's old. It's probably not the best smelling thing. And the people that had those Silvertones, they were ordering from the Sears and Roebuck's catalog, and they've been through the mill and back. Mm-hmm. I'm probably
held up by Staples.
Up by Staples. I'm probably not going to gig it or do anything like that, so it's probably going to sit around, and I'm going to play it here at the house. But I would be really interested in trying that 112 combo out. Mm. I've played one of the Twins before, and I thought it was cool. It was the one I played had real scratchy pots. It needed cleaned out. Probably needed new tubes and everything else, like a lot of them do. And it was cool, but it was was just too much for what I wanted. You know?
I always thought it'd be really cool to have that extra headroom. I would probably gig with it. I also think, I don't know if anyone's ever done it, but just the tone that comes out of a Silverstone amp, it's a little bit more fuzzy.
Yeah.
And like scratchy. And
Once you get it up so high,
Yeah.
but lower, it's like real clean and punchy.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I always thought that is a sleeper, probably slide guitar amp.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a really cool amp that you could just, play slide guitar on and it would have a really cool sound to it.
I also wonder if you didn't want to go that gritty, nasty route with the sound. If you wanted to clean it up some, what would that thing sound like in some really high efficiency speakers? If you
Right.
plugged that into a cab that had really efficient speakers, or even just higher powered than what it needed to be.
Right.
Like if I took that 112 combo and replaced that speaker,
What would it sound like?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because I don't know how much of that overdrive sound and like grittiness and grimy is from the speaker, or how much is actually from the amp, or
I
power
bet you it's
section.
quite a bit cleaner than we think.
I think it is too.
I'd like to try one out. If you all have tried out a Silvertone amp, let us know kind of your experience because we're interested in one.
It's a gas. I got a
awesome.
gas for the 112, not the twin 12,
Right.
but that 112 combo.
Yeah, awesome.
So we will move into my main topic. So I wanted to talk about, for the musician that's going out to a gig, what are the accessories that are must-haves for him? So the little
Him
things.
or her, and then also, are you talking about an acoustic gig or are you talking about
I'm
electric?
just talking about guitar gig.
So you've given me nothing.
I'm going to give you nothing. I'm going to make you work for this one.
Okay.
So whenever you're going to a gig, what are the accessories you think, oh, I need to make sure I have this, 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 and this?
Okay.
I can start off if you need me to.
No, I can.
Okay.
I can start, but I guess I'm gonna.
I wrote a little bit
I'm gonna
down
go
here.
into two categories: acoustic and electric.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So.
Mine are the same.
All right, you gotta give me some time here because there's a lot for each one. So this is gonna be about a 20-minute
Okay, cool.
tangent.
I love it.
But here we are. Not that I'm mad. But if you're going to an acoustic show and you're playing a gig, you must have accessories.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with basics. You got to have some picks.
Yeah.
You got to have extra strings because you break a string, not good. Or at least have a backup.
Are you bringing one pick?
No, I said extra picks.
One type of pick.
Oh, for an acoustic?
Yeah.
No, you got to have 3 different types. So, okay, I guess I'll go into more detail. So, an acoustic gig, you better have different types of picks. You better have a thick pick for, I use thick picks for leads.
Like some thick.
Okay. And then I will have a thinner pick for like strumming parts.
Call that medium.
Thinner.
Okay.
Can you stop judging me? I'm trying to explain it.
Okay.
All right. So a thinner pick for kind of strumming, and then just kind of like a medium pick, I would say, if you're trying to go between both. I also think it all depends on, too, what type of music that you're playing.
Yep.
And that will totally depend on. And I know pick seems kind of trivial to some of us, but I really didn't buy into it until I started experimenting with them. So definitely try that out. So you got to have different assortment of picks.
Yeah.
At least light, medium, and heavy.
Yep.
All right. You got to have extra strings for that guitar because it's going to happen. You'll break a string when you don't have one. You have to have a capo for at least the gigs that we play.
Yep.
So to me, it's like, your lifeline for a lot of acoustic shows, especially if you're the only one up there.
Yeah.
So make sure you have a capo. I do like to use a clip-on tuner just because with an acoustic, I don't like plugging it through a whole bunch of pedals. So I'll use a clip-on tuner to make sure I'm good, throughout the set. I am weird, and I don't like leaving the tuner on.
No, me either.
I don't like leaving the tuner on. Me personally, I will play slide. So there are some songs that require it, and I got to make sure I have that.
Yep.
I think the one I probably forgot that should have been right up there with one of the first ones. Make sure you have a strap.
Yeah.
Got to have that as an accessory. So make sure you have that going on. Other accessories, backup cables. Goodness gracious, that's the most important. Not just XLR for your mics, but backup cables if you're plugging straight into your guitar.
Have at least one cable for every type of cable you would need.
Right.
If
it's a patch cable,
have at least one patch cable. Have at least one extra mic cable. Have at least one extra, at the minimum, one extra guitar cable.
Right. If you are running, most guitar electronics have 9 volts. Make sure you have 9-volt batteries with you. Make sure that you have multiple extension cords. How many gigs have we played, especially acoustic? And they're like, yeah, your power's 50 feet that way.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Then you have a power strip or something where you can plug in multiple things. I don't know if you have an acoustic pedal board or like a preamp. Make sure you have power to that and extra batteries for that. So that is like the fastest I could get through that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And honestly, what I do is I have a duffel bag and I've got all my extra like cables and stuff like that in there ready to go. I forgot to mention that. If you're playing acoustic, not a bad idea to bring a towel.
Yeah.
To wipe down if you're getting your guitar grimy, if you sweat like me, if it's an outside gig, not a bad idea. Or I've had the instance where I'm playing outside, they didn't have a like tinted area.
Yeah.
And when it rains, just to cover that sound hole,
yeah,
that saved my life.
Yeah.
So make sure you bring a towel too. I always try to bring a stool,
yeah,
or something to sit on if I'm playing acoustic, something like that. Electric, goodness gracious, do you really want me to do all this?
Well, I don't think it's a whole lot different for electric, right?
I mean, strap, picks.
Let's assume you said all the same stuff for electric, because you're going to need all the same stuff.
You're
right?
going to need all of it, yeah.
Is there anything extra you would bring for an electric?
You need to make sure you bring extra patch cables.
Yeah, that goes under cables. Yeah, one extra cable for every type of cable.
What else am I missing?
So I think about...
I don't necessarily need the tuner for electric because I've usually got one on my pedal board.
Right, yeah.
I feel like there's something I'm missing. Maybe I can just kind of generalize it.
I think so too. I think I can too. So a couple of things that you didn't mention that I think about whenever I load up stuff is I think about some type of backup rig. So if my amp goes down as an electric player or whatever, I want some type of backup. If it's a Line 6 pod or if it's another small amp or no matter what it is, find some type of backup to have with you.
And if you are bringing a backup amp, don't forget you need to make sure that wattage will still cover it.
Yeah.
So, if you are bringing, let's say it's a twin reverb and it's a loud gig, a Blues Junior probably is not going to cover it unless you mic it.
Yeah.
So make sure you
think about that. I think about a second guitar, so just a backup guitar, especially for more of an electric thing. For acoustics, a lot of times you can get by with one guitar. I feel like personally, because you got time to change strings if you need to or something.
Right.
Sometimes electric gigs, you're trying to bust through songs quickly.
Also, something to think about too is if you have multiple people with you, I would say you don't need the extra guitar as much.
Correct.
Because you can kind of mid-song kind of situate some things if you're able to. You're not the singer or something like that.
And then I think about gaffer's tape. I'm always needing to tape something down.
Oh, yeah.
I always need to do something like that. I think about the little string changers. So the Planet Waves makes them a bunch of same. It's a winder. It's got a cutter on the other end.
Yeah.
Because if you leave your strings sticking out of the headstock.
I just put that in my case and forget about it. So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it.
So, yeah, I have them in my acoustic cases, but I don't have them in all my electric cases. So whenever I take one of those to a gig, I got to make sure I have one of those in the electric case that I'm taking. And then, super glue is the other thing. Have you ever busted a finger open on a gig?
I can't say I have.
Yeah, I've had that happen where I've had like a little spot on my finger open up, and I've had to like super glue the spot closed.
So a Band-Aid wouldn't work?
A Band-Aid would work, but it's on the string, and it's goofy.
Why don't you just play with blood on it? It would be really cool.
It would be cool.
It's totally rock and roll.
Yeah, if I was in a Slayer tribute band, maybe. But I've used that before. A Flea is really famous for doing that on his thumb where he slaps. I've only had it happen like once or twice ever.
Never thought about it.
But, or if you've got a cut already there, I bring some super glue with me to have. You can just lay a little bit on there. And then let it harden up a little bit, and then you can go to playing. But that's really about the only other things I think about.
Backup guitar and backup amp, that's a big one too.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. You definitely want to do that. I mean, if it's feasible.
Right, yeah. And then, don't forget like set lists and things like that, right?
Right.
Bring a set list and like paper maybe to jot some stuff down in case something changes, or if you need to be like making an announcement at a place you're playing or something. Sometimes they want you to do stuff at a certain time. So that's really about it.
Make sure everything's charged if you are bringing like an iPad or something like that.
Or bring charger cables for it. And then for tube amps, I love to bring a spare set of tubes if I can to keep that amp running. If you're bringing a second amp, maybe it's not as big of a deal. Maybe you don't have to worry about it. But if you are only bringing one amp, or like you've got one amp you really want to play through and the other one is less than ideal to play through, maybe try to bring another set of power tubes and like 1 or 2 preamp tubes. So yeah, that kind of covers most of that. If you guys have something else you're thinking about that you bring to a gig, or an accessory that you guys always make sure you're taking, let us know down below. And I think that's going to be it for this episode.
All
so
right.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
See ya.